What is up, guys? Now, you know we're the plug-in. We're here to hook you up, and we ain't talking no bullshit hookups either, fam. From grow lights to fertilizers, if you need dry or liquid organic fertilizers, Neptune's Harvest has got you covered. Made by growers, for growers, Neptune's Harvest has some of the best fish fertilizer around. Not just that, but their crab and lobster shell, the stuff is amazing. Lots of people don't always realize this, but after filleting a fish, there's lots of great stuff that remains, but may just go to waste. Now, Neptune's Harvest was able to turn that amazing stuff into some great fertilizer that's used by many gardeners across the globe. Your plants will love you for it, dude. From veg and flower nutrients to loads of other organic inputs that you can work into your existing feeding schedules, it's truly amazing. Use the discount code ICANTHC for a nice discount on all Neptune's Harvest products. Perfect. Now, light is also super important to get the best quality and product. The sun is perfect, but for those times when we can't harness the sun, the Moss Hydro Grow Lights never disappoint. Their full spectrum LEDs, they rock! They've got quantum board, bar style lights, they've got all types of styles. Their lights come with external dimmers, some models even have awesome detachable features as well. So use the discount code ICANTHC and snag a discount on your lights, exhaust systems, and more, even your grow tents, dude. Perfect. Now, Qualitrips has some awesome gear, and their germination booster is truly amazing. Definitely couple up their germination booster with some of their gear for amazing results. Discount code ICANTHC works on all Qualitrips gear. Now smash the like button down below, hit that bell, roll one up, and let's get ready to toke it down on today's episode.
We're about to take it back.
Okay. Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode on the Talkin Loud podcast, where we discuss everything dank, sticky, icky, gassy, and all that good stuff. And today I got a very special episode for you guys, because we all know how important it is when it comes to gardening. We all know we love our gardening, and it's very important to dial in those environments. Happy and healthy plants, those are the key, right? That's the end goal. Amazing flowers. But to get the best out of it, you really need to dial in your environment. And I'm talking heating, cooling, ventilation, the works. So today we break that down with some very special guests, Matt and Megan from Mechanical Environments. How's it going, guys?
Good. Yeah,
Awesome.
We're stoked to be here.
Hell yeah, man. I'm stoked to have you guys. Sorry everyone that's in the chat. We ran just a little bit late, so we had to, push it back just a little bit. But we're here now, and that's all that matters. And we got some awesome content for you guys. So smash the like button for that. We got some amazing guests that are going to break down everything when it comes to heating, ventilation, cooling, HVAC, everything, because those things are super important. But just to kick things off, man, Megan and Matt, where are you guys based? I'd just like to ask people where they're based and how things are going on over on their side of the globe.
Yeah, we're at Denver, Colorado. We service like the Denver, Boulder region, a lot of the commercial cultivations in that space. We stay pretty busy. We love being in this region for sure.
I got you. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Now, like I keep saying so far, environment is super important. And it's something we speak about like a lot on this channel. And it's like environment. And I had the pleasure of seeing you guys out at CannaCon, and actually kicking with some of you guys at the booth. And that was really interesting. So we're going to dive into all of that today, guys. But before we do, Matt and Megan, can you guys just tell me like a little bit about how you guys got into this space, maybe HVAC specifically, like what pulled you guys into it?
Yeah, well, I started actually on the HVAC distribution side. So I was selling to contractors materials, and I went to work for a contractor who did grow specific stuff. So I started working for him, and situation fell through a little bit, and I called Matt, who was a contractor I was working with previously, but he was the only one I knew who knew cannabis and HVAC, so he came to work with me. So
yeah, my background is more in the gray market, between California and Colorado.
Gotcha.
And we were at an undisclosed location, and it got very hot, and I Googled everything I could do, like I was outside with a vacuum cleaner, vacuuming this air. It's the middle of winter time. It sounds like there's a semi truck backing up to the back door. I'm like, oh shit. So called the HVAC guy, and he showed up. I was like, okay, these are the 20,000 things I tried. He's like, do you want a job? You know? So I made the transition out of the garden, you know, into a real job. And then when Megan called, it was like, hey, do you want to come fix all the issues at Grows just for, you know, like the HVAC? Like, yes, please. You know, so I'm excited to, you know, we transitioned back into where, you know, kind of where I started, you know, HVAC wise. And I just like to see it grow, like to be, you know, involved. But it's like children too, where it's nice to be able to, you know, leave at the end of the day. Be like, I'm here. I'm glad I could help. That was really fun. But
I like that.
You know,
Yeah, I like that, man. That's really interesting, man. So you sort of got into it because, like, you know, they say necessity is the mother of invention, and things were just super, super hot. You're like, how can I solve this problem? I've clearly got a problem. I need to figure out a solution, and that's sort of how you got into it, right?
yeah.
Wow, super interesting, man. So what did you do to actually solve that issue at that point in time? That's issue of all that heat.
Yeah, well, it got really hot and it was really, really noisy. We ended up needing a condenser fan, and we moved the compressor inside the space, right? So it had originally been set outside, and we took just the noisy part inside. You know,
I
this
got
thing
you.
was situationally specific, but we needed it to stop being loud right now.
Yeah.
So we moved the loud compressor inside the building. Was the quickest, easiest fix.
I got you. Pretty interesting, man. And Megan, like I've actually noticed right here up on screen, it says that you're actually, you know, got a background in HVAC, in HVAC, and distribution and sales management. So, in that with that background, like you know, being heavily involved in HVAC, I guess my question is it really specifically geared to cannabis growing, or is it just a lot more of the general HVAC stuff? Because in my thinking is that like maybe a little bit more specialized when it comes to, you know, the medicinal plants.
So originally, I wasn't geared towards cannabis HVAC directly. I was just doing general, residential, light commercial HVAC,
Got
spec
you.
outs and helping contractors get the parts and equipment they needed. But when I came to the contractor side, my distribution background and knowing warranties, who the best partners in town are, all of that really leveled up the cannabis side of things for us, because we know what we need generally, but then what manufacturers are actually going to come to the table, give us the best warranties, the best operation capabilities to really dial in a system and keep it, within 1 degree, 1% humidity, that kind of stuff.
I got you. I got you. Makes a lot of sense. And I guess like a lot of that background really helped you, you know, when you look at things now from the medicinal plants, you're like, okay, I understand how this works and I could put a little spin on it. And it really helps to give you like a unique perspective as well, right?
Yeah. So just knowing the full capabilities of equipment and how to gear it to where it works with cannabis in general is like,
I got you. Now, guys, how important is like actually maintaining that environment? Like when it comes to HVAC systems in your grow room, you know, no matter how big or small, like how important is it to actually dial in that heating, ventilation, and AC?
Well, there's two pieces there, right? So dialing in and maintenance, right?
Okay.
Dialing in is important, because that's really where understanding your VPD, understanding your targets, and like continuing on a path until you hit them is crucial. You know what I mean? So like a good grower is going to know, I want to be right here on the VPD chart, and we'll continue to make improvements until they get there. Maintenance wise, the best way to save money is to do maintenance, right? Like a filter is not very expensive, but changing your filters will prolong your life, of this equipment by like a decade. Like if you just let the dirt every time you replant go into your machine, like it's just going to plug it up, it's going to destroy it. So just in simple things, in like getting a filter, and if it doesn't fit very good, you could get some blue painter's tape, and tape up that little gap, that you see every day. You could save 5 extra years on your piece of equipment by just keep the dirt out of it. It showed up clean. All you got to do is keep it clean. Don't let it get dirty. So like maintenance is crazy important, because you can, in one run, you could come in and be like, I pulled the filters out. I didn't have time for that. And then you bust out the blocks of Pro Mix and the perlite, and everybody leaves with crusties under their eyes, and yeah, you know exactly. You know, it's on everything. It's in your unit too, and that's why drains clog. You know, it's dirt that got past the filter. You know, so like so much time chasing your tail in the end, you can get ahead of by just like maintaining. You
Yeah.
know, when you're outside and you see the cottonwood is landed on everything, your air conditioner too, right? The outside unit of your air conditioner. So it can't breathe. It's got a sweater on. It just needs a little bit of love, you know, once
Yeah.
or twice a year. You
Yeah.
know, a little bit of love can lower your power bills once a year, you know? So
I love that you pointed that out, man, because I've seen a lot of people literally, even the small things, man, they've got a little carbon filter with an inline fan and they don't like use a sleeve on it at all. You know, and it's in your grow room and you're transplanting stuff in the tent, you know, even if you're not, stuff gets in there, you know, really easily. And just by doing that, it can prolong the life of your stuff by a lot, man. So excellent point there, dude. Excellent point. But like not just that, but how important is it to like also maintain like the proper RH, temperatures, you know, that sort of stuff as well?
it's absolutely critical. I mean, it's the whole deal with growing, you know, it's like VPD is one of those terms that gets thrown out all the time. And I feel like only half the people who throw it out there kind of understand what it
So what
means.
is VPD for those who
So
don't know?
VPD is vapor pressure deficit.
Got you.
It's a really fancy word for a ratio of how well your plants are transpiring.
I got you.
Okay, so if you have a high VPD number, your plants are just throwing water out the door, right? So like the more you feed it, if you have a VPD that's off the charts, it's just getting rid of water. Think Denver here, you know what I mean? Like the air's so dry, it's ripping water off the plant. Same thing that happens
Literally.
when you go up skiing, you know, like you just so dehydrated so fast, you know. So
Dude, it literally rips the water just off of the top layer of my soil, dude. I've got to
yeah,
like use everything I can to keep that moisture in there. It just pulls it off.
you know, and so if you're growing in an environment that's, you know, subprime, right, the air is just not doing you any favors, whether you're too humid, right, you know, and the plant just can't sweat enough, right? Same environment you get in Florida, you just can't transpire, it's just not going anywhere, you know, or you're too dry where the
Yeah,
air is just sucking it
complete
through,
opposite.
you know, because you can get it's crazy how everything's linked, right? So deficiencies or like buildups, you know what I mean? So you might have too much of, say, calcium. That might be due to the fact that you're moving so much water through the plant that it's calcifying. It's evaporating so fast, the calcium can't go with it and it's staying in the leaves.
Yeah.
You know, so controlling the VPD is huge. You know, like getting the environment right controls your transpiration, which is going to affect your watering rates. You know, it all goes hand in hand, you know.
I got you. That's really, really great points, man. And Megan, like just hearing about some of these terms, like I'm sure that like just being in the HVAC space, you guys look at things like completely different. Like the it's almost like a different language. Some of the terms you guys use, some of the acronyms. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, even like going back to like VPD here, like if you know your VPD, we can take the chart, whatever VPD chart you live and die by, we can take that and we can potentially position you somewhere else with the same VPD on the chart to get more efficiencies out of your equipment.
I got you.
So we might be raising the temperature and the humidity slightly, but you're still within the same VPD, but your equipment's able to work better. So.
Okay. Interesting. Because like I also noticed that like when we speak to a lot of technicians outside of the grow space, because you know I've done some like work for like maintaining houses and stuff, and just getting into some of that stuff and hearing the technicians talk, it's completely different. It's almost like a different language to me, you know, and like just bringing that middle ground. And I think you guys do that really well at Mechanical Environments, you know, bring that middle ground. You guys have got the grow experience and you guys have got that technical expertise where you guys understand the HVAC procedures, the equipment, the process, all that stuff really well. So for someone like me who's just a grower and doesn't understand all the technicalities, you guys can really help walk someone through that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we might use a term as like a low ambient kit, but in reality, that's just a kit we're putting on your condenser outside to make sure it can still run during the winter time. It's very important because if you don't have a low ambient kit or some sort of winter controls on that unit, you're going to struggle to run your AC during the winter time. So like we might call it low ambient kit, but really it's just think of it as a specialty winter kit for your equipment.
I got you. Very interesting, man. And coming to think of it, like HVAC, it'll probably require like a lot of different pieces of equipment, right? So you need something to maintain the temperature. You may need something to maintain the RH. You may need something to kick up the heat and stuff. So, how many different pieces of equipment are there? Just generally speaking, that someone may have in a grow room at any one point in time. Like, is it a huge amount? Is it like maybe you can get away with a smaller amount? Just out of curiosity.
Well, there's a lot that gets packed into that question, right? So the basic concept of an HVAC equipment for grow, whatever you put in, we will design something to take back out, right? So if you have very low inputs, right, you have a single LED light at low wattage and small watering, you don't need a lot, to get that back out. What goes in comes out. So,
Gotcha.
but now if you have a facility, right, where you're dumping in the power, right, you got 1,500 watt lights and 190 of them, and you're feeding thousands and thousands of gallons a day, the first thing that's going to come off the list that you listed there is heat, right? There's no shortage of heat when your watts are through the roof, so it's really about cooling the space, and then next is removing moisture from the space.
Interesting.
So cooling and dehumidification are the biggest pieces. You do put some heat. We put some heat in there redundancy wise, right? So you want heat for when you go on vacation, really,
Okay.
is what it comes down to. Like, these
Lights
facilities,
off.
yeah, or a power outage, or when you decide you don't want to grow anymore. But as long as the grow lights are on, most of these guys don't need heat, or in the middle of winter time, one of your units will do a little bit of heat, and that's just about good enough.
Yeah, I got you. And we got a lot of questions coming in. Guys, if you got any questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. We'll try to get those answered. Anything when it comes to heating, ventilation, cooling, anything about your grow environment. We've got an interesting one here. KJ all day is saying, I got 2 humidifiers going, but I can only get 40% in there. No matter what the humidity is outside, still 40%. Is that the heater's fault?
So you're adding humidity to the space. Now, do you have an exhaust fan running at all that is pulling that humidified air directly out where it can't actually raise the humidity in the space?
Interesting question. That's a great question. I can't say, but usually in my experience, if you've got an exhaust fan in there, it really just pulls a lot of that moisture out. So no matter how much humidifiers you get in there, the humidity is going straight back out.
Correct.
Cooling as well. Humidity is all about, right, the temperature of the air, right? So RH is a funky number because relative humidity is a relative measurement to the temperature and the humidity, right? So 30% RH is a much different value of water, right? It's 70, right? It's kind of like a sponge, okay? So if you think about saturating a sponge, right, when it's all the way big, it's a high, heat content. As you get a sponge colder, right, you compress it, right? We're getting close to 30 degrees and the water's just falling out as it gets colder. We're still at 100% at what this sponge can hold, right? So depending on where you are in that temperature scale, 40% can be a lot different, right? 40% of your daytime temperature and 40% of your nighttime temperature might be where some of the issues come in.
I got you. Interesting point, man. That's a fantastic point. I didn't even think of it that way, but wow. Great one. And just another point on temperatures, man. Temperatures can cause a lot of different issues in the grow room. If your temperatures get too warm, you can have issues like all sorts of issues, and if it gets too cold, you can also face a lot of different issues as well. So when it comes to, maintaining the temperatures in the grow room, is it as simple as just throwing a couple oscillating fans in there, or do we need to do something a bit more sometimes?
Maintaining temperature, I'd say the biggest piece that scales from small to big is trying to fight the pockets of air, right? So stratification, where like warm air wants to settle on top, cold air wants to get trapped under your trays or at the bottom of the tent or at the bottom of the room. The bigger you go, the more racks you get, the more like pockets that are there,
Okay.
So one thing that I've found more and more recently, the oscillating fans can be helpful and not helpful, right? So think about the water in your tent like a big pot, or the air in your tent as a big pot of water. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can't get it going really fast, but once you get it going, it's going to stay going, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes the oscillating fans stop that flow. You know what I mean? So sometimes it helps to actually not let them oscillate and really try to get that tornado going. You
I
might even
got you.
add like one under the trays and one above the lights to really like think about it like a volume of water. It has weight. It needs to get churning.
Yeah.
Mind blown, man. And again, these analogies, you're screwing my mind up, bro. I love them. I love them. And just coming to think of that, man, I've actually seen this great piece of equipment out at the Canicon, man. This fan, this seems like a great piece of equipment that I think would help to, get that tornado going, get that cyclone going. So can you tell us a little bit about this great piece of equipment, this crazy ass fan?
Yeah. So these are the LA turbos. This is similar to what like a V-flow fan would do. Most people are very familiar with that fan. But the difference between these and your standard like V-flow, these pull air from the top and the bottom of the fan and throw it back out. So you're pulling where those pockets live. Because usually, anything above your lights is pretty hot. Anything below, where your plants are, air's not really moving. So if you hang these about light height, you're able to pull that heat from the top and all the air from the bottom and mix it up and help destratify the space.
Yeah.
So, especially if you have situations where you're in a bigger grow and all your cooling might live actually above the lights versus it's not at plant height or below your lights.
Yeah.
It really helps to mix up those two different temperatures in the space.
Yeah, we like this fan. So we try to go to a lot of the trade shows. This one we were stoked because it was in our hometown to be able to just, show off products that we like, and try to meet some new faces in town. But this is an Italian-made product. They have the patent on the above and below and that center helical design. So we've found great success, especially with like double-ended HPS. You're a single tier, and when you get on a ladder above the lights is like night and day. You know what I mean? Like it's nice and cool up here, and below the lights you're struggling.
Yeah.
That just does a great job of just popping the bubbles, that live above and below. So
that is crazy.
Yeah, if you need one, let us know. We bring them in. They're built in Italy. So it's kind of sometimes hard to get your hands on one, but we'd be happy to help anybody out if you want to be.
That's super cool, man. I could just imagine having just one of those bad boys in my grow room, man.
And they do a lot more square footage than your average fan. So you can do, say, with 2 of those fans, what you could do 8 V-flows,
Yeah. I remember when I was standing up, like it was a distance away, and I was feeling that breeze just hitting me, man. It was so awesome. I was like, I got to stand up here for just a bit again.
Right. And it's cold because in that big trade show, it's cold up top, so it's pulling all that air from the top, all the way out to the side. So,
yeah, very interesting stuff, man. And, also, like just out of curiosity, man, we mentioned earlier, like it can be, a complete different language when it comes to the technicalities of HVAC and the HVAC systems and just understanding it all. But when it comes to like load calculations as well, it's super important to understand like how much cooling and how much dehumidification is needed, when you're designing your grow space. So can you guys just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the first step you want to do when trying to design a new space is load calculations. Basically, we need your temperatures, your humidity ranges, and that's your minimums and your maximums during lights on, lights off, your watering rates, your square footage, because without that, we can't even begin to design what you need for your space. Because we got to pull out, we need what lights you're running, because we need a watt is a watt. So we need to pull out all that heat, which back to terms where you might not understand what we're saying, is sensible and latent. We'll talk in that. So sensible being the heat you can feel, and latent being the moisture removal, the humidity side of it. So not all equipment is built 100% of what you think it is. So a 5-ton isn't necessarily a 5-ton system. It's most likely 4 tons sensible and 1 ton latent. So we got to, depending on how many lights and all of that, we have to design for that. And then we'll go from there and see how many dehumidifiers we need to add on top of what your systems can pull out for you. So there's a lot that goes into it that most people don't think about.
There's a lot, but the key piece is that it is straight math. It's
math.
Like I said before, What you put in, we will take back out. Okay. One of the biggest misconceptions I hear all the time is that LEDs don't produce the same amount of heat. That's
True.
only true if you keep the same lumens and lower the wattage, right? So if you, like a light bulb in your house, right? The 60 watter turned into a 3 watter. Yeah, you got less heat because now you're only using 3 watts, right? Watts, a watt. Now, if you pull a 1200 BTU or 1200 watt fixture out and you put a 1200 watt fixture in, you're not saving anything, right? You're only saving if you stick with the same par value. You know what I mean? It's efficiency per par. So you can't increase your light output and expect to get less cooling, right? So
Yeah.
what you need to know really is how many watts of energy are in your room, right? We work this basic, like Megan's talking about the final details to make sure that your equipment bang fits you perfect. But the first half of the equation, how many watts are in your room, right? And then watts converts to BTUs, right? And then BTUs converts to tons. And that's it. You know, but now that's not factoring in any of your watering rate. Okay. So that's ACs condensate. Anything that condensates is removing moisture from the space, right? You're gonna, that's what Megan was saying now. So yeah, you need 5 tons, but that means you need 5 tons without any condensation, right? So now we're gonna get into, well, how much water do we need to remove altogether? You know, because there's some other hidden watts, right? There's some other hidden heat. Your dehues, right? You might need 5 tons, but that dehue is an extra half a ton, you know, and now you're just kind of struggling to fight this battle.
Yeah.
So it's a big equation. Account for everything, and you can take it back out.
Every fan in the room is putting out heat as well. Every little thing you put in there
Just
is
a little.
producing heat to some extent.
But the easiest is the watts. You know, count the watts.
I didn't even think of it that way. When you guys really break it down like that, like probably the most I thought of is like, okay, everything that I plug in, it's taking just a little bit more load from that outlet. Like even if it's not on, you know, it takes a little bit more load. But I didn't really think of like the heat that emanates from everything. Like the fan does have a little bit of heat coming off of there as well. Your carbon filters, your inline fans, all those things that just to get it to work, you know, it has a little bit of heat. The ballast on a lot of people's lights, you know, the adapters and stuff, those push off heat as well. So wow, crazy.
Yeah. So add up all the watts in the room, you know, and this is everywhere. When you do a load calculation on a fancy house, right? One of the line items is how many coffee machines, right? How many house plants, right? So like everything produces a little bit of heat, you know, in the grow calculation, what we're not factoring for is the outside. You clearly aren't going to have any windows. You know, we're not too worried about your roof because you're probably a building in a building. You know what I mean? So the grow, we kind of get rid of the environmental piece and really just focus on whatever you put in is the size of what comes out. You know? So
I got you. Interesting, man. And guys, we've got like almost 100 votes on this question. It says, do you pay attention to heating, cooling, and ventilation? And a lot of people, an astounding 92% of you said yes. For the 8% of you that haven't, that's something you probably do need to dial in, man. And we've also got another great question here. But before we actually get into that question, guys, please do smash the like. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes in this video. We've got a lot of you guys watching, so smash the like and show some love. But this question comes in from Olga, which is pretty similar to a point that I had. And they're saying in a 4x4 that runs between 75 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, how can I lower my humidity without sucking out the supplemental CO2? And for me, I was going to actually raise a point about CO2 as well, because when you're running CO2, you need to take into account a lot of little things when it comes to the HVAC as well, you know? So can you guys just touch on that?
Yeah. So the missing piece from that question is how are you cooling your space? Right. So a 4x4 tent can go either way. Either you have some sort of cooling and you're pulling air from outside your tent and you're using your house's air conditioner, you know, or you might have a mini split, which is a little bit more, you know, troublesome, but I've seen crazier setups, you know, so In order to lower the humidity without sucking out supplemental CO2, if you're on just a fan exchange system, you're really going to have a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
CO2 is heavier than air, so if you tried to kind of focus on pulling from the top where a little bit more heat lives and less CO2. But now if you do have some sort of air conditioning, if you have a coil that gets cold,
Okay.
right, it needs to be cold to remove moisture. So
Okay.
you want it to run longer, right? You need longer run times on a coil. So in some situations, that means adding a little bit of heat to keep the unit running, right? To give it something to do, right? If that unit turns on, satisfies, turns off, it doesn't have a chance to get cold, to grab that moisture out, right? So to perhaps to get more out of your unit, you want to get longer run cycles. You want a little bit more heat in there to give your AC something to do, because it's not, the AC doesn't get rid of CO2, the exhaust fan does.
Okay. Wow. Interesting, man. That's a great point. The exhaust fan. That's probably why I hear all the time when you got CO2, you're supplementing with CO2, you need to pay attention to that exhaust. Wow. Interesting, man. Again, great points. You guys are dropping some great knowledge here. Guys, smash the like for that. And we've also got another question, but this is my own personal one. And when it comes to humidity control, I lived out in the Caribbean before. It's super humid. Like it's really really humid all the time, so my issues was getting the humidity down, and I got a massive dehumidifier in there, but then there were times when I would need to like get the humidity up as well, maybe in a small
Mhm.
tent or something. So are there any other solutions other than buying a humidifier and a dehumidifier? Are there any solutions or any hacks that any home growers can use to increase or decrease that humidity?
Understand where you are. Okay. Like you said, you've been in the Caribbean, you've been in Colorado. How would you describe the effects of outside air on your garden? It's night and day. So that's the biggest piece, is when you hear good advice in Colorado, don't necessarily blindly take it in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
because you're into two different environments. So understand, what the temperature is outside, relative humidity and temperature, and try to pull air from a source that's more ideal than your tent, right?
Yeah.
So if you need, to dehumidify, the unit that's on your house is probably got a lower relative humidity. So controlling your entry point is as important as controlling your exit point, right? So if you just exhaust a space, right? Say, just for example, we'll go big. Say you had 1200 CFM, right? You got a 10-inch exhaust fan doing the whole basement. Like, you're not on a submarine. That air is coming back in one way or the other. You know what I mean? So it's coming back in through the gaps, through the cracks. You can spray foam all you want. You're not going to collapse your house like a soda can. It's not going to happen. It's always going to make its way in. So if you can guide that air in to, say, your furnace or your air conditioner, or, your house's furnace, and then you got your conditioned air from there, you could have your air conditioner treat the air and then pull from your house. So think about, where's my air coming from? And if you can get a better starting source, you'll get better results.
Yeah, I got you. Interesting, man. That is, like, again, great information as well, because you got to understand your environment. What may work for Bill may not work for me, and what may work for Tom may not work for me. So when I was out in the Caribbean, the aim was to get the humidity down, get a dehumidifier or something in there. I found that running an AC unit that I had in the bedroom, which I use as my grow room, helped to get those humidity levels down, but it also lowered the temperatures and caused things to feel a little moist at times. So there are issues that you can face even when you're battling one thing, you face an increase in something else. So you guys, as you're pointing out, you just need to pay attention to your environment and where you're at, and then that way you can sort of dial things in. And I've seen a great comment here from Hipsters and Hippies and Rico, and both of them were just having a little bit of a conversation amongst themselves here, and they were saying, if you don't pay attention to ventilation, bad stuff happens. And just because you pay attention to your temperature and humidity doesn't mean that you have it dialed in yet. Now, isn't that a great point? Because you can pay attention to it and you need to monitor it. That's the first step to dialing things in. So can you guys just touch on the importance of that?
Well, just like we were saying, controlling your entry exit point, right? So on the comment here, how do you get PM from having bad intakes? Well, you don't know where you're pulling from. That air might be coming from that weird gap with the PM grass, in the corner of your house. And that's where your air is coming from,
So
So
true.
by controlling that my air comes in through a filter that'll get rid of spores right away, we now know that, okay, well, I'm not getting PM from outside, so just paying attention to these little things. Like they said, like you can really, if you were ever worried about where pollen comes from, it comes from outside. And if you're not controlling your intake air, what is your neighbor up to? You don't know, like so yeah, just paying attention to little things can really.
Your neighbors are washing those dirty clothes and it's blowing all outside and coming straight into your room. I don't know what my neighbors are doing. I have no clue.
We've consulted with hemp fields, these big hemp farms, and every year they get seeds from,
They've
I
got
don't
no
know,
clue.
and they get on the Google train and they start trying to figure out where the seeds came from or the pollen came from, and be like, well, I read that pollen can come from China on the jet streams across the ocean. You're like, well, you better consider what air is coming in. So as a home grower, if you have the ability to control your entry point, you're going to be 10 miles ahead. You can get those particulates out. You can have it pulled from a room that's ideal. From controlling small things can have a big outcome in the end for sure.
I like that one. Controlling small things, guys, can have a big outcome. So smash the like for that. And air quality is super important. And you kind of mentioned that, man. Whether you're concerned with like microbials, little spores, or anything else, these contaminants can get into your grow room, and there are a lot of filters that you can use to deal with some of these stuff. So can you guys just touch on the air quality? Because that's something that you guys really do advocate for, on your website and stuff.
Yeah, filter changes are huge, like we were saying. Like even Matt said, even if you don't have the right size filter, take your blue painter's tape, seal it up, because filter bypass is one of the biggest causes for equipment failures. Like whether it's clogging up your coils, making them freeze, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and there's different MERV ratings when it comes to filters. So the lower the MERV rating on a filter means it's a bigger mesh. So it's not going to stop as much stuff.
Okay.
So a MERV 16 is what you would consider like a hospital grade filter.
Wow.
So obviously the tighter the mesh is on a filter, the more often it's going to need to be replaced as well, because it's getting filled faster.
Yeah.
So usually MERV 8, MERV 10 around that area is usually what we suggest for just basic equipment.
Interesting. So that MERV 16 for the hospital one, is that like super tight, like nothing can go through there pretty much?
Including smoke molecules. So, you got to decide what's important to you. You know what I mean? Pick your level of filtration that matters.
Yeah.
The reason we harp on filters so much is there's a lot of nonsense. Some of it's for real, but you can wave your UV light around and like sterile. A filter catches actual particles, which is what bugs, spores, everything is an object, and you can literally catch it and get it out of there. Most other products, like it can say your COVID flies by the UV light and it gets zapped and keeps flying. You know what I mean? You're not actually removing anything. So some of the simple, most basic things in that, like you even said before, getting that pre-filter, you know what I mean? Like you can just get the dirt out of there. You can just capture and get it out of there. So filtration, we're a big fan of filtration. There's a lot of products on the market that like do a lot of stuff, and that's one of the things you were mentioning before. Speaking the two languages is really helpful, is because when somebody puts a product on the market and says it's for grows, oh, you best believe we're going to call and we're going to find out.
We're going to tear it apart.
What you're saying, what it does. Show me what it does. Show me how. Where's your proof? What
studies have we done?
Yeah, because a lot of these things, they're magic. It's a magic box. You plug it in, it lasts forever. You don't do anything. It kills everything, solves all the problems, ends world hunger, cures cancer. Boom.
We're done. But that's usually not the case.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool and all, but also like PM is a spore, and spores get caught in your filter, and you can stay on top of your filters and know that like you're actually doing something, versus like the blue light's on, so I guess I'm good to go. So like do your research, I would say, especially when it comes to some of the indoor air quality products, especially with COVID being hot off everybody's heels. There's a lot of snake oil on the market.
Yeah.
So that's why I tend to just go back to like the pre-filter, like you got on the screen now. That's capturing a ton of dust, and being mindful how you remove and clean that is huge, right? Indoor pest management is a routine, right? You want to be proactive on those things, not reactive. So when you harvest the tent and it's empty, taking that 10 minutes, you know, to pull that off and then throw it in the washing machine and come back fresh means you removed like 5 or 6 pounds of stuff, right? Skin flakes, spores, whatever the last insect issues you had. Like, there's no need for that, you know? So like, I tend to go simple is best, you know, in that like a filter goes in, it leaves the environment, you know, it captures it. You can decide how tight you need. If you probably don't need to capture smoke particles, I wouldn't probably spend your money on that. But mold spore, yeah, you know, you probably want to capture mold spores and then throw it in a bag and be cautious about how and when you take it outside.
Yeah,
You know?
so true. This is actually a picture of my carbon filter back out in the Caribbean, man. I had an indoor grow and everything, and it was clean. It's not like it was dirty or anything, but this just goes to show how much it can suck in there. Granted, this was like an 8-inch carbon filter and intake fan setup, maybe a little bit of an overkill for the space, but it sucked everything out of there. And sometimes that's good. Having a little bit of negative air pressure is good. So just removing that filter and being able to wash it, and like you said, do it safely. So I waited until everything was down. I put it in like a bag. I closed the bag so I can take it out of the room. I was just super cautious with it, man. And a lot of people don't know that if you don't even have that filter on, that little sleeve on there, which is washable, by the way, all that dust is going straight into your carbon filter. It can get into your intake fan. It'll shorten the life of your pieces of equipment that you spent all that money on, right?
By a lot.
Yeah, by a lot.
A good visual that I think helps. So when you buy a fan, that fan in that picture was like 8 or 10 inch, right?
Yeah, 8-inch.
8-inch. So that's usually about 1,000 CFM, right?
Yeah.
CFM is cubic feet per minute, right? 12 by 12 by 12, roughly equivalent to a basketball. That's 1,000 basketballs per minute we're going through the top of that fan, right? And if you had that hooked to outside, 1,000 basketballs a minute were coming into the door of your tent. Okay. So
and that's where your CO2, your cooling
visuals, you know, so that's
out the door.
Also an issue, right? When you're trying to fix the condition in a tent, slow the fan down. Mm-hmm. Like you don't need to whip through there that fast, you know?
Yeah.
That's a problem that we find on the industrial side too, right? When you started out, you always had a can fan. It was always hooked to outside. You don't know why, but you got your big facility and we did it again. You know, we hooked 12-inch fans outside because that's what we did, you know, before we got here. So we did it again. That facility here in Colorado, we showed up and they said, man, I can't keep my humidity above 30. I don't know what to do.
I wonder why.
You have thousands and thousands of plants. There's no reason you should need more humidity.
Literally.
So we went around and we found all of these 14-inch can fans on full blast, right? Blasting out the roof. They're like, yeah, we did notice that cold air comes in this over here. And we've been spray foaming and trying to solve all of these, you know, special little. So we came in, we told them to put speed controllers on the fans and turn them down, right? Yeah. Turn them way down. Crazy. Turn the whole facility right around.
We added dampers too, so if they did turn it off completely, no air was coming in. So
yeah. Amazing. Big ups to you guys for that, man. And that is something that I actually wanted to touch on as well, because you can get any old HVAC company to come into your grow space, man. And a lot of them may not be looking for these things. They may not understand how cannabis grows. They may not understand how you need your grow space to be. So they may not understand the importance of, you know, sealing up these spots and doing it in such a way that it doesn't cause light leaks, you know, just being careful with all those stuff. If you got to work under a green light, you know, it's for a reason. So you guys sort of bring that, you know, understanding. So can you guys touch on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the biggest things, just because I did come from the distribution side and worked with a lot of contractors who out of their mouths would say, I did a grow once, you know, because if you think about it, nobody in a residential situation is cooling during the wintertime. So they don't understand cooling during the wintertime. They don't understand how to make that work, like, because that's, you know, over their heads.
Like
why do you need to cool? Like, so like that's one of the biggest from your just standard residential, even commercial operation is most of these places aren't cooling in the wintertime.
Wow, that's crazy.
We're also, I mean, my background being in the garden, like I'm stoked to be around, you know, like I'd love to see these big places succeed, you know, and like Be like, bro, I just got to 3 pounds of light. Be like, yes, you did. Like, right? Like, it's just all about it. So like, we're just kind of living in the real world where like people, I've had places be like, somebody told me they won't clean my units if I have plants in the room. Like, well, it never gets any easier. You don't like take the trays out every time. Like
the trays are still going to be there.
It is what it is. Like, yeah, green light might be annoying, but in like 10 minutes, it's really not that big a deal. And
you're going to just smash it and you're going to work under it because that's what you got to do when you got to work under the green light, man.
It just is what it is, but it's really not that bad. So,
and like I said, one of the things I would, start with when you're vetting an HVAC person for your cannabis facility is ask them to run some basic load calcs or make sure you have enough cooling. Because if they can't provide just the simple math that it is to verify that you have what you need, then they probably don't know what they're doing. Like that's a big indicator of, somebody who knows versus doesn't know.
The other piece is that being in cannabis, people think that they can charge, a ton of money for no reason, which is really just annoying, like
for sure. They smack that medicinal or hit THC on it and it goes for a premium, bro.
Yeah. And if you're just not feeling it, they're probably. So here's one thing. When I was on the other side, I was really worried about talking to HVAC guys. But now that I'm on this side, like, I don't report to like who, what, you know what I mean? Like, I was really worried about like, oh gosh, I got to use this one really specific dude. Like, I mean, vet him out. I'm not, just going wild, but at the same time, like, contractors are just dudes with a truck. You know what I mean? Like, there are other contractors out there. There are other people that can help you. Like, I wouldn't be too terribly worried about it. This is the only HVAC guy. Like, nah.
And like you said, dude, now with that experience, with understanding how the grow room works, and you can call guys out on their bullshit. You can be like, yo, that's bullshit. That's not really, you're trying to hustle me right here. Because a lot of people out here, they do try to do that. It's almost like what a lot of the mechanics do with someone who doesn't know how to operate a car too well. They'll try to just keep you coming back. The more that they keep you coming back, the more money they make, so win-win for them. But what I noticed that you guys do is the exact opposite of that. And shout out to Megan as well, because when it comes to understanding your operations and your facility, that's something you really help the growers to do. And you, Matt, you have the understanding as well, so you can get in there as well and you could point out a lot of these things. So props to you guys on that, man. I think that's really great, and that's something that the community needs a lot more. So if you guys can just touch on that as well, because you guys also do a lot of designs and build outs, custom HVAC setups for growers and stuff as well, right?
Yeah. So like one of the first things we like to do when we're walking a new facility and talking to people and getting in there for the first time is we like to label all your equipment. We're going to go through, we're going to verify what indoor unit goes with what outdoor unit, how many pieces of equipment you have in each room, just so we have an understanding of your layout and what's going on. Yeah. That after we put a label to each unit, when one's broken, you can call us and be like, it's this dehumidifier in the big flower room or whatever. Like, so we know exactly what unit's broken. There's no confusion when we get on site and the guy who reported it's already gone and now nobody else knows which unit was actually struggling. It eliminates a lot of that headache. And, we can keep a record for you. Like, okay, we've maintained this. We've done this on these units. Like, let's focus on these next and that kind of stuff. So
we try to stay on it and get in touch with any company that claims to have a cannabis product. You know what I mean? Like, we'll sit through any webinar, any product on Instagram. Like, we try to sign up. We try to find out, like, what's the deal? You know what I mean? Like, what are you really doing? What's the, like, you can try to throw big words at me, but, so, like, just
I'm versed in this shit, bro. Don't hit me those big words.
Like, how does that? No, that doesn't work like that. So try to pick between so that when somebody does inquire, because really, like, we're not trying to just sell one box. We're in it to like see the grows succeed. So I love it when somebody's like, what do you think about, this or this, or I saw this online. Is that for real? You'd be like, well, here's the pros. Here's the cons. Here's what's real about it. Here's what's not, and like, so anytime somebody makes a cannabis product, we try to inquire about it. We also, so next month, if you're going to be at MJ BizCon, we'll be there. We're not going to have a booth this year. We're just going to stay on top of what's new, see who has what products coming down, and make sure there's nobody trying to push too much nonsense at a time.
Yeah,
Like,
I like that, man. Advocates for the good stuff.
yeah, we go to the big HVAC conventions and try to find products. That's like those fans you saw.
Yeah.
Those guys, it's an Italian product. They want to be in the grows, sort of. But we made sure, like, dude, this product belongs in grows. Let's make sure we have all the information and we can distribute it if needed.
Gotcha.
So we try to be in the middle ground there to like find what products will work to be able to offer good solutions to people if they want them.
Yeah, and that's the key, offering what everybody's already requesting. Like, you can tell me you need a fan and what you think you need, and I'll bring you those 3 options and let you decide what's best for you. The price point, the warranty, whatever it is that you want, we'll make it happen for you. So
Perfect.
if you just want whatever piece of equipment on the shelf is going to last the longest from the manufacturer's warranty, great, we'll start there for you.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's just listening to the customers and the clients and what's important to you. What would you like to see? Okay, we'll make that happen.
Yeah, I got you. And a great point here by Norma G, man. So shout out to Norma G, because I, as a home grower, face one of these issues as well. And one of the big issues for all growers, I think, even on the commercial scale, is the cost of electricity. And all manufacturers of all HVAC products need to think more about how to keep the wattage down in these products. So is that something that you guys actively think about? If you guys could touch on that just for a sec, a little bit.
Absolutely. This is a classic issue. Okay. It comes down to more upfront, lower power bills, less upfront, higher power bills. The tables in this year are starting to turn, right? It's actually interesting. We're on the commercial industrial side, so we service these guys who are in an interesting boat. Gotcha. So when we were first, two, 3 years ago, what we used to hear from people was, I don't care about my power bill. Talk to me about my grow. Do not care. Get my bill lower. Don't worry about the power bill. Now it's like, well, what warranties and rebates and how do we, it's like
Excel just doubled my power bill.
Yep.
How can I deal with this?
Yeah, those smart meters, it's all coming up, so the technology is absolutely out there, and we're being pushed more and more that direction, because what it really comes down to, right? Saving electricity on an HVAC equipment. Your biggest draw is when your equipment turns on. Yeah. Right? Starting a motor from a dead stop, though it doesn't take a lot of amps for a long time, is the absolute biggest draw. Yeah. So most equipment, the cheap equipment, is one stage, which is a lot like driving your car using only the key. Okay. Right. So you have on, right, and it rages, off, right? And on a flat road, you could probably get by. You know what I mean? But on a hill, you're really gonna struggle. You know what I mean? You're gonna be overpowered, underpowered, all
You'll be
the time.
Screwed. You'll be screwed, bro.
So that's where a lot of this energy usage goes to, just like on, off, on, off, on. So more equipment nowadays is able to kind of like match the load condition, right? It's like putting the gas pedal in. That's the inverter technology, where instead of just turning off, it'll turn down, and instead of, you'll get tighter parameters, because if you watch a unit that just goes on, off on your temperature chart, it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So a modulating piece of equipment is going to hold a much tighter parameter. The drawback being higher upfront cost. So
your equipment costs more, but your power bill in the end is going to be less. Yeah. So it's, what battle do you want to fight there?
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because that's something I've noticed, and I didn't actually think of it when Norma G asked that question, but when you guys actually, said it, I was like, it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of, pieces of equipment that are not necessarily cheaper in how they're made, but just cheaper in terms of the cost for a grower to purchase it, they can run you a little bit more in terms of the efficiency cost in the long run, so you may have to put out a little bit more upfront just to cut that upfront, that electricity cost in the long run. So great point, guys. I really appreciate that. And shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Mitz He says, this topic is great. Some great information. Rico is actually trimming while he's watching this, and he says it's an excellent show so far. Shout out to anyone who's in trim jail, bro.
Yeah, for real.
We had to kill some time, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. Smash the like for that, guys. But I wanted to ask, both of you guys would probably be in this space for quite some time. Like, so how has it been just noticing how things change from the olden days, back when commercial grow setups were just starting off, there were a lot of white paint and plywood, so to speak. And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
everything was like temporary, disposable. You can rip it down afterwards. Now a lot of more pieces of equipment that are really, fixed in, they're permanent. And like we mentioned in the previous question, a lot more high efficient, high functioning, high quality pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
How's that been?
Well, like you said, when I was first getting into this, the material of choice was plywood, pond tarp, panda paper, and waterproof paint. And you can make anything you needed. Like
Literally.
anything you needed. So that was how when the industry first started here in California, Colorado. There's a lot of like old facilities that remind you of the garage. These big blow it out gray market 99 plant count builds,
Yeah.
just because that was what people knew how to do. This industry was wild because a senior employee, right, 5-10 years ago, had no resume. If you're legit, you should have no photos, you should have no references. So like everybody was an expert, nobody was verifiable.
Literally.
Everybody had the secret to 20 pounds of light. And it was just smash and grab, right? The first round of investors were in it to make money. Nobody cared about longevity, so just do what we've been doing, do it again, blow it up, go hard. What's interesting is as these new markets have come online, like if you go to build a facility in Michigan, nobody's even going to offer you these old school things. Like you're going to already be considering 3 different insulated foam panels for your wall. We were like, well, should we paint the drywall? Like you don't use drywall anymore. You know what I mean? You use plastic and like, but just the starting point when you go to approach, like I'm gonna build a grow, like you have so many more options. If you wanted racking in the day, you went and bought pallet racking, and you were a crazy evil genius setting up some freaking 2-tiered thing with these awful LEDs. So like now, well, you can get an OSHA rated 3-tier gliding mobile rack with power slide to the left, power slide to the right. Like it's wild. It's totally come a long way in just a decade.
Yeah, I think that's great. Personally, I can't wait to see where it goes and how far it goes, because I think we've got a long way to go still, and just the possibilities, they're friggin' endless. And once the legalization spreads, the wave of the acceptance of the plant, it's no longer demonized. We'll get a lot more things going on as well. So just on that note, just wanted to close off, and before we do, I think we've touched on a lot of different things, but for everyone that wants to find you guys, maybe get in touch with you guys, where can they do that?
We try to stay on our Instagram at Mechanical Environments. The S is the
Sweet.
important part.
Top.
Yeah. Mechanical Environments. We're on LinkedIn. Our website as well has a lot of the basic information of like some of the topics we covered here. Basic questions we get asked a lot, basic load calculation questions.
Yeah.
We can reach out, email, all of our contact information is on the website.
Yeah, you can call us directly at 720-899-7667. That will come directly to me, and you can ask questions and comments, concerns.
Yeah.
We're here to help. So
Awesome. That is amazing, guys. And I learned so much, and I think a lot of people did as well. We've got like almost 100 likes. We have over 100 votes, 120 votes. We've got a lot of people tuned in. And on behalf of everyone and thousands of people that are watching afterwards, man, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We had a great time, and we really, really look forward to, maybe doing it again or seeing you guys out at MJ BizCon. I think I'm going to be out there next month. I'm trying to shift some dates so I can make it happen. So if you can bounce up out there, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
We had a great time. Thanks for putting this together. We're happy to help. We love to see the industry grow.
Anything we can do to help educate, we're here for it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, most definitely, man. And guys, that is what's up. It's super important when it comes to heating, ventilation, and AC, your HVAC, your grow room environments, all that stuff. It's super important. So be sure to smash the like button because today's episode, we went into all that and we got some great advice from some great people. And, it's really, really awesome. So smash the like for that, guys, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. And wait, don't forget, most importantly, stay high and stay fly, and we'll see you on the next one.